Hello, Radiant One, and welcome to Spiritual Business with Mariaestela, the show and podcast for soul-driven, heart-based spiritual entrepreneurs and Magdalene's rising wanting to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, spiritual business coach, mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Mariaestela, and it is my deep honor, my great pleasure, and joy to share this episode with you. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to join my newsletter to stay connected and updated. You can do so on my website, mariaestela.com, where you can also find previous episodes and their show notes. Here is today's episode. So, Radiant One, welcome to today's deep dive, today's topic, which is why divine clarity is nothing without inspired action. First of all, I want to say that to me, divine clarity is in the realm of the divine feminine. It is the realm of being, of gnosis, of wisdom, of knowledge, of intuition. That's the realm of clarity. That's where the clarity comes from. That is, like I say, the realm of the divine feminine. And the realm or inspired action is then in the realm of the divine masculine. The divine masculine is the ruler of, or the realm of doing. It's the realm of action, of building, of expansion, of creation. And it is when you marry the two that you have, hallelujah, you have when miracles occur and when flow is abundant and things that just seem to happen. It is when you marry or couple the inspiration, the gnosis, the knowledge of your divine feminine with the action, with the building, with the doing of your divine masculine. And when you combine those two, really that the only way I can describe it is hallelujah, because it's those moments where you're just in flow, when things are just moving and just yum. I think I've said enough about that. So I want to say that, and I think that maybe in that just first part, you can hear why divine clarity is nothing without inspired action. But I will go into it. First of all, I want to say that most of the people, or not most, but actually all of the people that I work with are what I call Magdalenes. They've made the journey from their minds into their hearts, aka they've activated, they've engaged, they've reawoken their divine feminine essence, and they come from that space and want to be from that space and serve from that space of love. And that awakening and that journey of awakening her or reawakening her of getting to know her is a journey of often, dark nights of the soul, of rude awakenings, of liberation from, liberating yourself from limiting beliefs and, old paradigms and fear-based mindsets and so forth. And so I hope it's also very clear that to me that journey is, that's one of courage, it's one of power, it's one that very often, when people talk about spirituality is all love and light, and it is a lot of love and light, but there is nothing, it's not love and light without fear and darkness. It's not about, it's not without going through that you will, bring the light or be the light and become the light and is the light that you already are. Because it's as you unveil yourself and unravel that you begin to see that from a different place and a different perspective. And so the people that I see in my practice, those are the people that I work with when it comes to in terms of their businesses. However, they're connected to their divine feminine essence. They're connected to their gnosis. But there are two distinct avenues that I see that they veer into, because we've been, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll also link to some other posts about this. So if you want to dive deeper into this, I have more on this topic. We've been conditioned in a patriarchal society to believe that the way of doing is what we're seeing in the world right now, is, the world of dominance, of abuse, of force, of coercion, of manipulation. And you and I both know that if once you've awoken to that divine feminine, that's not the way, and you don't want to be doing from that space. However, and so I see two things happening. Either you become so aligned with your divine feminine essence and know that you don't want to do from that normal worldly way of doing, that you stop doing anything, or you run around like a headless chicken doing, knowing that your divine feminine is beckoning, calling you, asking you, wanting you to serve, but you don't know how to do from a space of love and service, because it's not what you've been brought up with, and it's not what you're taught, and frankly it's not very common in the world. I began first talking about this, I think, 5 years ago, and luckily I now see it more and more in the world, because the more that expands, the better the world really becomes. I want to share two different client stories with you, and I want you to listen in and see if you recognize yourself in one of these two, to kind of inspire you to your next step. So first of all, many moons ago, I had a client who was very aligned with her divine feminine essence. She was receiving 1 million downloads. There was a ton of things that she wanted to put out in the world, but she was part afraid of not choosing the right thing, and that kind of held her back. And then she was also overwhelmed with all of these million ideas, because what do you choose? Which one do you go with when they all seem so amazing and fantastic? And so that overwhelm kept her back, and brought her to a point where she was frustrated and irritated, and seeing everyone else and their grandmothers have success, but she was still stuck in not knowing which path to take. So what we did with her when I began working with her, first of all, I had her, list out. And this is the process that I go through with basically every one of my clients. And it's a process that I have put into a downloadable guide called Divine Clarity and Inspired Action. You can go ahead and download that. It's totally free. And that can help you with that part, as well as the inspired action, but more about that later. So what we did was I had her list out everything that was on her heart, basically every idea that she had. And I think there was about 10 or 12 things that had come up for her. And I then had her list a few paragraphs of each. And then what we did in one of the first sessions was we prioritized them. We said, okay, which one of these which one is tugging your heartstrings the most? And then we went through each of them. And this can be a painful process, because if you have, if you're wanting to birth 10 babies, all of these 10 babies are your babies. And so of course you're wanting to birth them, but we also know that you can't birth 10 babies at once. So there's got to be some prioritizing. And so we prioritized her ideas and got it in order. And then I supported her with accountability. I supported her with organization and structure, and in terms of getting these ideas into the world. And I don't think I've ever had another client who was so prolific in her creation once we got that started. It was basically just her divine masculine essence was just begging to be used and begging to be put into action. And so that once she had gone through the process, had set up her systems, and this was, I think there was different products, and there was both products, and then there were services, like personal services, and then online products that people could buy or sign up for. And once she had that in place, she became this prolific machine of just creation. She was going into checking in, joining with her divine feminine, and then just, adding the action from her divine masculine, just creation. And it was just a beautiful thing to see that when you marry those two. And then So that's the one. That's where I call it sometimes the lazy chicken, not to demean you or to pull you down, but it is where your divine feminine essence is so active, but your divine masculine essence is so inactive that you become quote unquote lazy. You and I both know that there is not a lazy bone in your body. You're a magnificent, beautiful being in this world, and you're here for the service of others. You're here to bring what only you can bring through. So if you have the idea of being lazy, trust me, it's just an ego. I call it a mind fuck from the ego, because you are not lazy. I know that, you know that, or at least parts of you know that. But like I said, there's an article on that, and I'll link to that in the show notes. Now, another client that I have, and like I said, these are usually, I'm picking these because these are so very they're very, and these are real people. And again, when I share client stories, I do so with the express permission from my clients. But these are very I don't want to say frameworky, but they're very what's the right word? They're very common. Like, this is what I see usually in my practice. So they're very this applicable to a lot of people that I see. So the second story that I want to share, or client story that I want to share with you, is again someone who was deeply connected and is deeply connected to her divine feminine essence. However, she was so far overactive in her masculine, and not her divine masculine, but in what I call the shadow masculine. And that's the realm of the force, the abuse, the stress, the coercion, the dominance, the never thinking that you can take a moment off because you have to do all the time. And that's where it to me becomes a headless chicken. It's trying to do everything that the quote unquote experts are telling you to do without ever stopping for a moment to check in with yourself, and to check in with your feminine intuition and your divine feminine, and see if this is, feels like the right step for you. And so she was, like I said, doing. And again, she also had 1,000,001 ideas. However, she was spreading herself so thin that nothing was ever being brought to completion. She was never allowing herself to reap the fruits of her labor. She was never allowing, because she was always having 1,000,000 projects at once. And so it was running from one thing to the other. She got up early in the morning to work before her son got up. Once her son was off, she did the work. Once her son was back and he was fed and put into bed, she would work again. And she would stress herself out. She was overworked. And so what we did in her case was we implemented, and again, this is in the Divine Clarity and Inspired Action Guide that is totally free. And if you don't have it, I highly recommend that you go ahead and download it and use it. We scaled back, basically, which, when you're someone who is in that mode, can be extremely difficult to do. And it took a while for her. I want to admit, it took a while for her before she surrendered into the idea of having, quote unquote, just 3 priorities per day and 3 priorities per week. That meaning that you don't necessarily only do 3 things, but that once you've done those 3 things that you have prioritized, you acknowledge yourself for what you've done. You pat yourself on the back. You really accept the joy and liberation and satisfaction that comes from actually completing your projects and accomplishing. And the quote unquote funny thing with her is that when she finally surrendered, she thought that she would be giving up everything that she ever wanted to do. And what she instead experienced was, with every project that was brought to completion and finished and put into the world, she was number one. She was able to reap the fruits of her labor, aka it was bringing her the money that she had been working for, and it was bringing the joy and the satisfaction and the service to those people that she was bringing this product and service to. That's number one. And secondly, she would get a lot more done, like a lot more, and also do it from a space of satisfaction. If you're someone who's running around like a headless chicken, never feeling satisfied or liberated or accomplished, that's not right. Ask yourself, did you come into business for that? Is that why you abandoned your career or your job? Or is that why you're trying to expand because you may be working part-time somewhere? Is that why you're trying to build your business? Is that to overwork yourself or work yourself to the ground? My suggestion is that it's not, but that's completely up to you, of course. And finally, what it also allowed her to do, and that's the place where she's at right now, is that, as she expanded and completed those different projects, she could also begin to see, who do I need in my business? And she's begun to outsource more. She has the products and services in place. They're bringing her in the money. She's able to hire out the tasks that she either don't want to do or can't do or is drained by, and is able to bring on board amazing people who can support her with that, and thus continue the expansion in love. So one of my favorite quotes from A Course in Miracles reads, "It is through you this world will change." And so if you've listened or watched this far, I know that there's something in this that brought you here, something that is between us. And so I just want to leave you with, go ahead and download Divine Clarity and Inspired Action if you haven't already. If you have downloaded it, go ahead and use it. It's a process that is tried and tested. It works. And pull out your calendar and add those 3 things that you're going to be doing either today. And if today's tonight, then 3 things that you're going to be doing tomorrow, and then the next day and the next day and the next day. Yes. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. I know this was like a full-on search because it's something that is such... it's so important to me because I see so many soul-driven, heart-based entrepreneurs who are, frustrated out of their minds with not being able to add action, or they are exhausted from overworking themselves and working themselves to the ground. And I want to tell you that there is another way, and that way is love. So I hope that this served you. I love you. If you have a question whatsoever about anything that I've said, go ahead and post it in the comments. That is what I have for you today. I love you. Take care. That is what I had for you in today's episode of Spiritual Business with Mariaestela. I hoped it served you well. For all of the deeds and details, click the link in the description, and if you want to support the spreading of this message, share it with a friend or on social media, or leave me a comment or a review. God bless.